They called me trash boy. Now I speak on global stages. That line always gets people's attention when I start my talks. But tonight, as I stood backstage at the Global Youth Empowerment Summit, hearing 20,000 people chant my name, Ethan, 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 it didn't feel like a line. It felt like deja vu. The scent of floor polish hit me first. That sterile, lemony smell they use to clean gym floors and school hallways. It sent me straight back to where it all began, to a janitor's closet I used to hide in when the world felt too cruel to face. Someone tapped my shoulder. "You're up in 2 minutes, Mr. Cole," said the stage manager, smiling like she was looking at a superhero. And I smiled back, but inside, all I could think was, if only she knew where I came from. I grew up in a small, forgettable town where everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew me as the janitor's kid. My mom worked at my high school, not as a teacher or a counselor, but as one of the cleaning staff. She'd wake up at 4 a.m., pack my lunch, and bike to school before sunrise to scrub the same hallways I'd walk through later. She never complained. She just hummed to old Spanish songs while mopping, her eyes soft but tired. I used to think she was a superhero in disguise. But at 15, I started realizing how cruel kids could be to people who didn't fit in. We weren't poor by choice. My dad left when I was 9. One day, he said he was going to get something better for us, and that something better turned out to be another family 2 states away. Mom never said a bad word about him, but the silence in our small apartment spoke louder than anything else. I didn't have fancy shoes or a phone or even new notebooks. Everything I owned smelled faintly of cleaning detergent because Mom washed all our clothes in the same bucket she used for mops. I didn't care, but high school kids do. It started small, like it always does. Someone saw my mom cleaning the hallway after school one day. The next morning, they whispered, "Isn't that your mom, Ethan? The janitor lady?" I shrugged it off. Yeah, so by lunchtime it had spread. "Hey, trash boy, you missed a spot. Ethan, your mom forgot her mop." Laughter echoed from every corner. At first I tried to laugh with them, pretend it didn't hurt. Pretend it was just teasing, but it wasn't. It was daily humiliation disguised as humor. The worst part, teachers ignored it. And the ones who noticed, they just said, "Ignore them, Ethan. They'll stop if you stop reacting." Spoiler alert, they didn't stop. Every school has a Ryan, the golden boy, captain of the soccer team. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect grades, perfect family that never seemed to struggle with anything. And for some reason, Ryan decided I was his favorite target. He had this habit of recording his pranks, then posting them online with dumb titles like Trash Boy's Daily Pickup. He once dumped a tray of leftover cafeteria food on me while I was sitting alone at lunch, then captioned the video, "Helping Trash Boy find dinner." The post got over 1,000 likes in a school of 600 kids. It got to the point where walking through the hallway felt like walking through a minefield of laughter. I stopped eating in the cafeteria. Instead, I'd grab my sandwich and retreat to the janitor closet behind the gym. It smelled like bleach and sadness, but it was quiet, safe. No cameras, no laughter, just me. Sometimes Mom would find me there while finishing her shift. She'd peek in and smile gently. "Mihijo, you should be outside. The world isn't in here." And I'd lie, "Just studying, Mom." I didn't want her to know that her son, the one she worked herself to death for, was hiding from the world. At night, I'd stare at the ceiling of our small apartment and imagine being someone else. Someone strong, someone who didn't flinch every time he heard laughter, someone people respected. But that felt like a fantasy meant for other kids, not me. If there was one person who saw something in me, it was Miss Rivera. She taught English, and she was the kind of teacher who made books feel alive. While everyone else dreaded her class, I loved it. Because for 1 hour a day, I could disappear into stories, where the underdog wins, where pain means something. One afternoon, she handed back our essays. Mine had a big red A+ at the top, and a note that said, "Ethan, you write like someone who's lived 1,000 lives. Don't let anyone silence that." It was the first compliment I'd heard in months. After class, she called me over. "You know," she said, "people who feel invisible often end up being the ones everyone remembers." I didn't really understand what she meant back then. But years later, those words would echo louder than the laughter ever did. It happened during a school assembly. Ryan's soccer team had just won the regional finals, and the whole school gathered in the gym to celebrate. The principal was on stage, Ryan and his friends were soaking in the spotlight, and I was just another shadow sitting in the back row. Then someone, probably Ryan's idea, decided it'd be funny to call me up as part of a volunteer cleanup demo. They said they needed someone experienced with trash duty. Everyone laughed. Even a few teachers chuckled nervously. I froze, my throat closed up. I wanted to disappear. Ryan handed me a black trash bag and said, "Come on, trash boy, show us how it's done." The crowd roared with laughter. Something inside me snapped. I threw the bag down, turned to walk away, and that's when Ryan accidentally tipped over a bin full of cafeteria leftovers right onto me. Cold soda, food, trash, everything. The gym exploded in laughter. Phones came out. Flashes blinded me. Someone yelled, "Say cheese, trash boy." And that was it. I looked up, face burning, chest tight, and screamed, "You think this makes you better than me? One day, you'll choke on your own damn laughter." I stormed out, leaving a trail of garbage behind me. I didn't cry. Not yet. My body was too numb, too full of humiliation to even produce tears. I didn't go to school the next day or the one after that. I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed non-stop. Notifications, memes, edited videos of the trash boy meltdown. Mom noticed something was wrong, of course. She came into my room one night, sat on the edge of the bed, and said softly, "I know it's hard, mi amor, but you are not what they say you are." I wanted to believe her. But at 15, when the whole world laughs at you, it's hard to imagine there's any world outside of that. I thought about running away. I thought about dropping out. I thought about how nice it would be to just not wake up. But then I remembered Miss Rivera's words. People who feel invisible often end up being the ones everyone remembers. I didn't know it yet, but that was the night everything started to change. The next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was still red, my eyes puffy. And for the first time, I whispered, "You're not trash. You're not." It sounded stupid at first, but I kept saying it over and over until it stopped sounding like a lie. When I finally walked back into school, no one cheered, no one apologized. They just stared, whispered, pointed, but I didn't look down this time. I walked straight past them, right into Miss Rivera's class. She smiled when she saw me. "Back already?" I nodded. "Yeah, I've got work to do." She didn't ask questions. She just handed me a new essay prompt. Write about something you'll never forget. And I wrote. I wrote about pain, about humiliation, about wanting to vanish but refusing to. I poured every ounce of anger, shame, and hurt into that paper. By the time I finished, my hands were shaking. It wasn't perfect, but it was me. When I handed it in, Miss Rivera read it silently. Then she said, "Ethan, that's not just an essay. That's a voice." I didn't know it then, but that was the first time anyone ever told me I had one. That day after school, I walked home alone. The sunset hit the rooftops in this orange glow that made everything look softer. Even the cracks in the sidewalk looked less like flaws and more like stories. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like hiding. I knew I wasn't strong yet. I knew tomorrow might be hard again. But something inside me whispered, they can laugh today, but one day they'll listen. That night, I cleaned my shoes, ironed my shirt, and promised myself something. I wouldn't spend my life trying to make people like me. I'd spend it proving that even the people they call trash can turn pain into power. Years later, standing backstage, hearing the crowd chant my name, smelling that same damn floor polish, it all came rushing back. Every insult, every prank, every laugh. But instead of breaking me, this time, it fueled me. The stage manager waved. "Ethan, you're up." I took a deep breath, stepped forward, and smiled. Because before people clapped for my speeches, they used to throw trash at me. And that's where my story really began. I didn't understand it at the time, but that day in the gym, the one with the spilled trash, the roar of laughter, Ryan's triumphant smirk, was supposed to break me. And in a way, it did. But sometimes breaking isn't the end. Sometimes it's the beginning. For weeks after that assembly, I lived in a fog. I skipped classes more than I attended, avoided the cafeteria entirely, and spent hours wandering the school's empty corridors, pretending to have urgent chores just to stay out of sight. Every reflection in a window or a glass door reminded me of the same thing. A kid everyone laughed at, a trash boy, a failure by everyone else's definition. At home, it was worse. Mom tried, of course. She would knock softly on my door in the evenings, carrying a plate of food, and say, "Mijijo, eat something. You can't rebuild on an empty stomach." But I didn't hear her. I barely heard anything beyond the echoing laughter from the gym and the burning shame in my chest. I'd stopped caring about school, friends, even myself. My backpack smelled like weeks of untouched sandwiches, and I wore the same hoodie for 3 days straight, the sleeves fraying like my nerves. I began to fantasize about running away, not just from school, but from everything that made me small. From Ryan, from the whispers, from the stares. One night, I was lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling, when I heard it. Mom crying softly in the kitchen. She thought I was asleep. I don't know what to do anymore. Everyone at school, they call him a loser, and I can't protect him. I froze. Her voice cracked, her hands clenching the counter. And something inside me, something that had been buried under months of shame, under years of feeling small, snapped. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't let her feel ashamed of me, or worse, let myself feel ashamed. That night, I made a decision I didn't fully understand. I would rise, but I wouldn't rise just to get revenge or to prove Ryan wrong. I would rise to reclaim myself. The first step was reading anything I could get my hands on. Self-help books from the library, articles online, motivational speeches on YouTube at 2 a.m. in my messy room. I watched videos of people who had been in my shoes, people who had transformed their lives after being bullied, humiliated, or ignored. I wrote notes on scraps of paper, copied quotes onto sticky notes, and stuck them around my room. You can't control others, you can only control yourself. Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. Failure is the first step toward growth. I became obsessed with learning how to communicate, how to hold a room, how to tell a story that made people listen. I watched TED Talks over and over, paused, rewound, imitated gestures, tone, pacing. I even recorded myself speaking in front of my mirror, first barely audible, then louder, more confident, forcing myself to hold my gaze. Then one day, I stumbled across an online forum for young speakers. There, I met Marcus Hale, a retired public speaker who had once toured the globe giving inspirational talks. He agreed to mentor me virtually. His first words were blunt. "Kid, you've got raw emotion, which is good. But raw emotion without control just looks like a meltdown. Let's turn that fire into a sword." Marcus didn't just teach me techniques, he taught me mindset. He taught me how to sit with fear instead of running from it, how to embrace my story instead of hiding it. He made me practice articulation, posture, eye contact, humor, pauses. Every mistake he called a lesson, every failure a chance to improve. At first, I tested my newfound skills in the smallest ways possible. I volunteered to read morning announcements at school, something no one noticed at first. My voice trembled, my hands shook, a couple of kids snickered, but I kept going. I didn't quit. Next, I started volunteering at school events, handing out microphones, setting up chairs, assisting younger students in presentations. Slowly, I began to feel something I hadn't felt in years: control, power, agency, a flicker of confidence. Miss Rivera noticed. She had always noticed. One afternoon, she pulled me aside after class. "Ethan, you're changing. You're stepping out, taking up space. I think you should enter the district public speaking contest." My first reaction, panic. I can't. I'd embarrass myself. She smiled, patient. "You'll never know if you don't try. And remember, it's not about winning. It's about being heard." I entered. I rehearsed for weeks, every speech recorded, critiqued, refined. I spoke to my mirror, to my mom, to Marcus. I timed my gestures, my pauses, my eye contact. The day of the contest arrived. The auditorium was packed, hundreds of students, teachers, parents. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. I was seen. My turn came. I stepped onto the stage. My palms were slick, knees weak. I looked into the crowd, my throat caught. I could hear the snickers at the back. My nerves told me they were judging me already. I opened my mouth and it came out wrong. Words stumbled. I lost my place. I choked mid-sentence. My face flushed. My hands shook so badly I thought the microphone might fly out of my grip. The laughter started. Not malicious, but sharp enough to pierce the fragile bubble I'd built around myself. I wanted to run. I wanted to vanish, but I didn't. I paused, took a breath, and forced the next words out. They were shaky, imperfect, but mine. By the time I finished, I wasn't confident. Not really. I lost the contest, badly, but something had shifted. I had faced hundreds of eyes, hundreds of whispers, and I had spoken. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. After that, I didn't stop. I joined the debate club. I volunteered for student council announcements. I even started small workshops with middle school kids who were bullied. I shared my story, stumbling at first, but every time, the act of speaking made me feel lighter, stronger, less defined by the past and more by my choices in the present. Marcus kept pushing me. "Ethan," he said, "confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's showing up when your knees shake, when your stomach hurts, when your mind screams run away. That's the real win." I learned to walk into rooms, make eye contact, and embrace the trembling in my voice. Every mistake became a stepping stone. Every awkward pause a lesson. Miss Rivera kept an eye on me too. She'd stop by my practice sessions after school, nod approvingly, and say, "See, you're already a different kid. Imagine who you could be if you never stopped trying." And slowly, I started imagining. The most important moments happened alone, in my room, in front of the mirror. I would practice speeches, mimic TED Talks, rehearse introductions, record myself, and replay the videos until I hated and then improved every second. One night, after months of practice, after a particularly bad rehearsal where I nearly gave up mid-sentence, I looked in the mirror. I saw the same awkward kid from last year. The hoodie too big, the acne still visible, the eyes haunted by old memories. But I also saw something else: determination, strength, potential. I whispered softly, almost laughing at how serious I sounded. "You can't erase who they said I was, but you can redefine it." And I meant it. That night, I slept differently. I didn't feel invisible. I felt like someone was finally noticing the real me, even if only I could see it for now. I didn't realize it yet, but this was the foundation of something much larger. Every small announcement, every club participation, every stammering first speech, it all mattered. Every tiny failure was shaping me, teaching me resilience, showing me that the world might laugh at me once, twice, or 100 times, but it couldn't stop me from becoming who I was meant to be. From hiding in janitor closets to standing in front of classrooms, I was slowly learning how to occupy space, how to own my story, how to speak with a voice that demanded to be heard. I wasn't there yet. I wasn't the confident kid with a global platform. But the cracks in my armor were starting to close, replaced by steel forged from humiliation and late-night practice sessions. And in that mirror, under the dim light of my bedroom lamp, I made another promise. They can laugh all they want. Someday, they'll listen. Someday, I'll make sure of it. Graduation day came quietly, almost imperceptibly, like a whisper in a crowded room. No banners, no confetti, no goodbyes from friends, because I had none. I walked across the stage, accepted my diploma, and nodded politely at the handful of teachers who congratulated me. Nobody cheered. Nobody noticed, and yet something had shifted inside me. I wasn't the same kid who had crouched in janitor closets, hiding from laughter, fearing every glance. That boy had survived, learned, and quietly prepared for the world beyond high school. College wasn't glamorous either. I enrolled in psychology and communication courses, partly because I wanted to understand people, partly because I wanted to learn the mechanics of influence, and mostly because I wanted to figure out how the hell someone like me could rise above what had been done to me. I worked part-time at a small cafe to pay tuition, balancing textbooks with trays of coffee. Most nights, I returned to my cramped dorm room, exhausted, but I kept a small flicker alive, a camera on my desk, and a blank YouTube channel, innocuously named The Invisible Kid. At first, I barely knew what I was doing. I fumbled over the camera, stumbled through sentences, and erased more than I uploaded. I wasn't trying to be famous. I just wanted to say what I'd never been able to say. I started recording videos late at night, sitting on my bed, speaking softly, sharing stories of being bullied, of hiding in closets, of feeling invisible while the world laughed. I spoke about the shame, the loneliness, the anxiety, The nights I had almost given up. If you're eating lunch alone, know that you're not broken. You're not weak. You're invisible only to people who have yet to see you. And one day, someone will. It was raw, unpolished, awkward, and it felt terrifying to hit upload, but I did it anyway. And then nothing happened. A few views, a few likes, a comment here and there. This helped me today. Thank you. I feel the same way. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to make me keep going. Slowly, the channel grew. I experimented. Shorter videos, longer monologues, storytelling formats. I spoke about bullying, yes, but also about self-worth, resilience, the importance of owning your story. I interviewed friends who had been silent for years. I shared the essays I'd written in high school, the ones Miss Rivera had praised. The videos weren't perfect. My editing was clumsy, my camera angles awkward, my lighting dim, but my tone was real, honest, vulnerable, and people responded. Thousands of subscribers trickled in. Comments poured in. I wish I had heard this in middle school. This is exactly what I needed today. Every time I read a comment like that, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Validation? Not exactly. Something deeper. A sense that my pain, the humiliation, the loneliness, the trash can fiasco had meaning, that it wasn't wasted. As my confidence grew online, I started speaking in real life. Small schools at first, libraries, community centers. I'd offer to speak for free, knowing that practice mattered more than a paycheck. The first time I spoke in front of a real audience, 30 middle school students in a musty library room, I nearly froze. My hands shook, my throat tightened. I remembered Ryan's laughter, the cafeteria tray of spilled food, the whispers, the humiliation. And then I remembered something Marcus had taught me. Fear is proof that what you're doing matters. Lean into it. I stepped forward. I shared my story. My voice cracked, I stumbled over words, and for a moment I imagined those kids laughing at me. But they didn't. They leaned forward, eyes wide, absorbing every word. When I finished, they clapped. Not because I was perfect, but because I had been real. Something inside me shifted. I realized that my past wasn't a chain. It was a bridge. Every cruel nickname, every prank, every whispered insult became ammunition for empathy, authenticity, and connection. Then came the video that changed everything. To the kid eating lunch alone. I filmed it late one night in my dorm. No fancy lighting, no editing, just me and the truth. I addressed every single kid who had felt invisible. Those sitting by themselves, hiding in the library, clutching their books as shields against ridicule. I see you, I know it hurts, I know it feels endless, but you are not trash, you are not broken, and one day you will find your voice. And when you do, the world will listen. I didn't expect much. I uploaded it, went to bed. When I woke up, my phone had exploded, notifications pouring in from strangers around the world. Comments, messages, shares, schools, NGOs, media outlets. They wanted interviews, talks, appearances. People I didn't know were tagging me, emailing me, inviting me to speak. The same people who had ignored me in high school were suddenly quoting my lines. Over the next few years, I traveled from city to city, stage to stage, from local school assemblies to national conferences, from small auditoriums to large theaters. I spoke for free at first, charging nothing. But as my reputation grew, professional opportunities followed. Each stage was a reminder. I was standing in front of hundreds, sometimes thousands of eyes, many of them kids who reminded me of myself at 15. And I had power, not over them, not to humiliate, but to inspire, to make them feel seen. I kept my story raw. I never sugarcoated the fear, the shame, the sleepless nights. I let people hear the cracks in my voice, because if I could survive humiliation and find strength, maybe someone else could too. Years later, after one particularly big talk, I got a message on Instagram from Ryan. Man, I see you everywhere. You made it big. I'm proud of you. For a moment, I froze. Part of me wanted to reply, to say something, anything. But then I remembered the 14-year-old version of myself, hiding in the janitor closet, trembling at the sound of laughter. I remembered the promises I'd made to that kid. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. My validation no longer came from him or anyone like him. It came from the kids I'd met, the emails I'd received, the faces I'd seen in auditoriums when someone whispered, "I feel seen." And now, here I was, standing backstage at one of the largest youth empowerment conferences in the world. The roar of 20,000 people chanting my name filled the room. I'd hear camera flashes clicking, the shuffling of chairs, the anticipation thick in the air. I took a deep breath, remembering the 15-year-old boy who had once crouched in a janitor closet, wishing he could vanish, remembering the boy who had been called trash, humiliated, unseen. And then I smiled. The same fear that had once made me shrink, the fear that had once silenced me, now fueled me. It made my words sharper, my passion fiercer, my empathy deeper. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was stepping into the light, bringing others with me. I pushed the curtain aside and walked onto the stage. The crowd erupted. And in that moment, I realized something. The boy who had been humiliated, who had felt invisible, who had spent nights crying in silence, that boy wasn't gone. He was the reason I was here. He was the reason they were listening. He was my power. Because the same people who had laughed at my silence had now started quoting my speeches. And I had found my voice. The lights hit my face before I even fully stepped onto the stage. Camera flashes, murmurs of anticipation, the unmistakable hum of 20,000 hearts beating in sync. It was surreal. I paused at the edge of the platform, letting it all sink in. For a moment, I imagined a younger version of me, crouched in the janitor closet, knees pulled up, hiding from the world. I could almost smell that faint bleach scent, almost hear the whispers and laughter that had haunted me for years. That kid would have been terrified to be here, in this arena, facing thousands. And yet, here I was. I began speaking slowly, letting my voice carry over the sea of faces. I didn't start with my accolades, my channel, or the stages I had conquered. I started with the fear, the shame, the humiliation, the raw truth of who I had been. Before people cheered my name, I crouched in closets. Before my videos went viral, I ate lunch alone every day, pretending no one saw me. Before I had a voice, I thought silence would save me. I could feel the energy of the crowd shift. They weren't here to hear about success, they were here to hear about struggle. They leaned in because everyone knows struggle. They felt it. I spoke of my mom, cleaning floors before dawn, working double shifts, keeping a family afloat while the world laughed at us. I spoke of Miss Rivera, the teacher who refused to let me believe I was invisible. I spoke of Ryan, the kid who made every hallway a battlefield. I spoke of that fateful assembly, the spilled trash, the humiliation that had shaped me. And then I shared what came after. The nights I cried, the late night YouTube recordings, the hours spent watching speeches, reading, learning, failing, standing up again. I didn't become confident overnight. I failed constantly. I stammered, stumbled, lost contests, and felt invisible more times than I can count. But every failure was a lesson. Every stumble was a step forward. Every tear was fuel for the person I was becoming. I could feel eyes glistening. Teens, parents, teachers, they weren't just listening. They were seeing themselves in my story. The invisible, the bullied, the overlooked, they recognized a part of themselves. I told them about the first time I stood in front of an audience. 30 kids in a library, my hands shaking, my voice quivering, fearing every glance. And how, even after I stumbled, the applause, though small, felt like a tidal wave. It's not about being perfect. It's about showing up again and again, even when your knees shake. And eventually, the world will see you. Not as a mistake, not as invisible, but as someone who survived and spoke anyway. I shared my journey online. The channel that started as whispers to an empty room, slowly gaining traction, videos that resonated with thousands, turning pain into power. My first viral video, to the kid eating lunch alone, the messages, the emails, the kids who said I had changed their lives. By the time I finished, the roar that erupted wasn't just applause, it was recognition. Not of fame, but of understanding, empathy, and shared humanity. After my talk, I stepped off the stage into the quiet hallway behind the auditorium. I was letting my adrenaline fade, trying to collect myself, when a middle-aged man approached. His hair was graying, his posture slightly slouched, his eyes tired yet wary. And then I saw the face I hadn't thought about in years. Ryan. Time had etched lines into his perfect facade, replaced confidence with weariness and the arrogance that once defined him with humility or maybe desperation. "Ethan," he said, voice cracking. I just want to say I'm sorry. I've been thinking about those years, and I can't believe how cruel I was." I studied him, not with anger, not with malice, but with curiosity. His eyes were not asking for forgiveness. They were pleading for relief from his own guilt. I didn't respond immediately. I let the silence stretch, and then I shook his hand, firm but kind. "You don't owe me an apology, Ryan. You owe yourself forgiveness." He nodded, a mix of relief and shame flooding his features. And just like that, the weight I carried, the fantasies of revenge, the imagined satisfaction of seeing him humiliated, dissolved. Forgiveness hit deeper than any triumph I could have imagined. Weeks later, I returned to my old high school. The hallways smelled the same. Sterile linoleum floors polished to perfection. The lockers were the same. The echoes of laughter faint but familiar. I walked past the cafeteria, paused at the janitor closet, and ran my hand along the doorframe. I whispered to myself, "You were never invisible. You were just preparing to be seen." I met with the principal and proposed a scholarship in Miss Rivera's name for underprivileged students who had potential but lacked resources. For the first time, I wasn't just reclaiming my story. I was creating opportunities for others to find their voices. Miss Rivera, now retired, stood beside me. She squeezed my shoulder. "You kept your promise to yourself," she said, "and now you're giving others the chance to promise the same." I walked the halls, remembering every whispered insult, every glance of judgment, every lunch eaten alone. And for the first time, it didn't hurt. It fueled me. I had transformed that pain into purpose. Standing on a plane now, en route to yet another conference, I look out the window at the clouds stretched endlessly below. I think about the kid I once was, the one who cowered in closets, the one who dreamed of being seen, the one who felt invisible in every room he entered. And I smile, because that kid isn't gone. He's alive in every speech I give, every kid I reach, every story I share. He's the reason I stand on stages around the world, the reason I inspire, the reason I never stop showing up. The world will always have bullies. It will always have judgment, whispers, and laughter at someone else's expense. But the choice is ours, to crumble, to hide, or to step into the light and help others find theirs. I fasten my tie, check my notes one last time, and step into the aisle. The crowd roars again. Cameras flash. The energy is electric, unstoppable. And as I walk toward the stage, I hear it. Not the echoes of laughter from years ago, but the pulse of possibility. The hum of hundreds, thousands of people waiting to be seen, waiting to be heard. And I know without a doubt that I am here for them. Because the kid who was once trash boy, the bullied invisible kid from the janitor's closet, he isn't just surviving anymore. He's thriving, he's guiding, he's a voice, and the world is listening. Alright, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. We have so many more amazing stories coming your way, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to reach 100K subscribers by the end of this year, and we'd love for you to be part of this journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.